Talk about bad marketing and promotion. Mafex, Captain America, and Daredevil will probably be one of the best examples when it comes to the phrase better in hand. I'll have my Mafex Daredevil review up a little bit later in this week, but boy, did Cap turn out a whole lot better than I expected. This was for many going to be the definitive 6-inch classic comic book Captain America in their collection, but after all this time, all the delays, can it still live up to that title? Is it enough to replace your Legends or the upcoming Mezco release? Well, after the initial hype and early anticipation, followed by a sudden sense of dread that Mafex may have fumbled this release when they showed us the official final shots, things weren't really looking good for this release. So let's finally lay all those concerns to rest and take a closer look at Medicom toy Mafex No.217 Captain America comic version. So going back to what I said about being a lot better in hand, I don't know if it was just the way the figure was posed or whether or not they overexposed the photos, but in hand, and you're going to hear me say this a lot here and in my Daredevil review, Cap looks amazing. I love the athletic, muscular, but not too muscular proportions when you compare him to the Legends, which is still a great figure. The Mafex Cap stands a little bit taller, which is why he looked a bit stringy in those promotional shots, but I mean side by side, there really isn't too much of a difference stature-wise. This to me is a classic 1970s John Buscema Captain America. Again, not as buff, still muscular and athletic, but not exaggerated like your more modern interpretations of superheroes. The costume has a brighter blue and sculpted in chainmail. Yay! It's subtle, but just enough to be interesting. The reds and whites are bright and clean, and you even get some subtle shading in the muscles. It's not too heavy and really adds a little something extra to the figure when you go in for a closer look. Remember that horrible pasty white skin tone from the promo shots? Well, so do I, but I'm here to tell you that these head sculpts are beautiful. I mean, the skin tone is still light, but what we get in hand is a lot closer to flesh tone than in those promo shots. The digital printing for those baby blue eyes, mouth, and other facial features are crispy clean, and if you look really closely, you can even see some of that digital printing around his jawline. And what a jawline it is! The face isn't flat, it's really well sculpted, and in the right light you can even cast some pretty cool shadows to give you more depth. The hair for the Steve Rogers head is a bright comic yellow with a bit of darker orange splashed into it to give us a bit more dimension. We get 3 options: your signature Captain America stern look of patriotism, a teeth-gritting action expression, and your unmasked golden boy Steve Rogers head sculpt. So there are a couple of QC issues with my copy of Cap. I wouldn't necessarily call them deal breakers, but depending on your batch, you might run into some of the same problems. First issue is with them little wings on Cap's head. One of them came loose because they're separate little bits that are glued in. Mine came out, I superglued it back in, so no problem. Nothing to fuss about, just something to mention since those little wings are tiny and you don't want to be losing them on your floor. My neck and waist joints are a little bit loose, not floppy. Cap holds his poses, but the neck and lower waist pop out a little bit easier than I'd like them to when posing. A bit of floor polish always does the trick. Again, no biggie, but it is something to note. Other than that, no real qualms. Once I got them fixed, everything's been peaches. Overall, pretty solid figure. Alright, so let's see how well you move Cap. Starting off with the head. Looks up really good. No problems there. Looks down just as well. You've got great side to side tilt and left and right as well. Some good movement around the neck, which is great. So overall, really good head articulation. For his shoulders, a bit squeaky there, but Cap can bring his arms. He's got pretty big arms and a pretty big chest, but that's as far as he can bring his arms into his chest. Pretty good, actually, all things considered. You can see at the back there that the butterfly joints do their job. Going back, you get a bit of range. Actually, pretty good. Better than I thought. Ooh, I've got to put some oil in that. Really squeaky. Going up past 90, which is good. We get, ooh, that's going to be really squeaky. I'm going to have to oil that up, but we do have 360 rotation there at the shoulder. And we do have a bicep swivel as well. Double jointed elbows, past 90. And of course, your swivel and hinges at the wrist. So here with the torso articulation, Cap can crunch forward that much with just his upper torso, but paired up with the lower torso, he goes down really, really far. That's a deep ab crunch. I like that. And there's little to no gaps there at the back, which is fantastic. And he goes back just as much. So yeah, this is, for me, this is the ideal setup in terms of, you know, your torso ab articulation. Just something that has always been missing in Marvel Legends until recent. But yeah, I've always wanted really good articulation in this section for Cap, and yeah, nothing's really done it for me in terms of a 6-inch comic book Cap. But yeah, now we have something. Unfortunately, the way that they've cut the upper torso and the lower torso, the stripes do break up if you do move the upper torso, like twist it side to side. So you do get that breakage of design in the stripes. I get why they did it, because it's just a solid horizontal cut there at the upper chest, and it looks a lot better like this. The cut looks a lot better like this than I guess it would have if you would have cut it up there at the upper chest. But yeah, I mean, you can still get Cap to, you know, twist side to side using the lower torso, so there really, you know, isn't too much of a reason to use that upper twist. Obviously you will, to get, you know, some of those shield throwing dynamic poses, but it's not too bad, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So, you know, it is something to note. Going with the legs, Cap goes about that far, side to side, which is pretty good. He does have drop down hips, which is great. He can kick forward and back, pretty good. The crotch there is a softer plastic, so you're not going to get any of those dents in your thighs. We have a hidden thigh cut, which is great. Double knees, pretty good range. No boot cut, but we do have a swivel there at the foot. The feet go down, up, pretty good range. Toe hinge, and some great ankle pivot. So yeah, just really good articulation here for Cap. Probably the best, for me personally, not including the Revoltech, for a 6-inch comic book version of Cap. Definitely a lot of fun to pose. Definitely get him into a lot of dynamic action shield throwing poses. So yeah, have fun with it. Cap comes with a pretty good spread of accessories, including plenty of expressive hands, starting off with a couple of rock'em sock'em fists, some open palm, fingers fully spread out hands for shield throwing, handstands, and your generic superhero poses, a couple of action pose stylized hands, which will probably get the most wear and tear, Cap's iconic finger pointing hands, left and right, some relaxed hands which pair up perfectly with your Steve Rogers unmasked head, and a couple of hands to hold stuff with, I guess. Nothing from this release itself, but if you have a flagpole or some kind of weapon like a knife or a pistol, I guess you could get Cap to hold on to some of those. Cap comes with 2 shields, one to hold and one to put on his back. Every company has their own way of dealing with this shield hold, shield backpack, and shield throw system. If you own or have seen the most recent Marvel Select Classic comic book Cap, that's probably the easiest and most ideal way to do the hold and backpack. Mafex has their own system, which works too, but it's definitely not the easiest. First, let's get to the shield. It's big, which is great. It has a nice thickness to it. The circles and the star in the center is sculpted and not just painted, which is even better. It's nice and shiny, which, depending on your preference, is either a good or bad thing. There's not really much going on at the back. You get your brown straps and a plain Jane gray paint job with no sculpted details. So for the backpack shield, unlike your MCU caps, this shield actually wraps around the shoulders and rests on Cap's back, and it sits there really naturally. The bottom right strap unplugs from the shield to allow you enough room for Cap to fit his arms through, and it's just a case of plugging the strap back into the shield. On paper, it's simple and should work relatively well, but in reality, it doesn't. It's probably the most frustrating thing about this release. There's not enough friction to hold the strap to stay tabbed into the shield, and even the slightest movement, the strap just pops out. Again, I like the way the shield sits naturally on Cap's shoulders. It's just keeping the straps on that's really, really annoying. For the holding and throwing shield, we get 2 kinds of straps that you can interchange, but we're gonna go through the holding option first. Grab one of your shield holding hands, wrap it around the smaller end strap and plug it back into the shield. Slot your arm through the larger strap and attach the wrist back into the hand holding the smaller strap. Once you have it on, and it's always more difficult than it sounds, Cap holds onto the shield pretty securely. It's a little fiddly, but not the worst way to attach a shield to his arm. For your shield throws, it's simply a matter of swapping out these straps with these smaller straps, though to be honest, there really isn't anything simple about it. You get a pair of shield throwing hands, which have these clips, I guess, that slot through these straps on the back of the shield. There isn't any friction holding the shields and hands together, and it's more of a balancing act than anything. And again, I mean, it works. For me personally, for how effective it is, which it's not, is just way too much trouble to set up for the amount of payoff you get. I mean, it's great that they included it, but I'm probably not going to use it. Last but not least, and you can probably tell that I'm exhausted from going through the overly complicated shields, we get a mask down accessory to go with your Steve Rogers head sculpt. It lays nicely on the back of Cap's neck and looks great paired up with your Steve Rogers head sculpt. Again, love the hands, love the head sculpts. Wish we could have gotten an extra screaming expression, and a simpler, more effective way to implicate the shields would have been nice. So basically, this release has an amazing figure, which looks great, poses really naturally, better than any other 6-inch Captain America out there, and is a lot of fun to pose around without his shield. I just hate the engineering that they used for the shields. I just wish there was an easy, natural-looking, secure way to do the hold, backpack, and throw, but alas, Mafex just couldn't pull it off. The shield hold isn't too bad, but everything else really puts a damper on the fun factor for this figure. For me personally, this could have been my definitive 6-inch comic book Captain America, and maybe it still will be, with some modding. Maybe I can get that backpack shield to work a little bit better, but as it stands right now, Mafex were really, really close to getting it all right. Don't get me wrong, I still love the base figure. I just wanted to love the whole package. Anyway, I find myself collecting even less Mafex than in previous years. Damn you, Tamashii! So the very few Mafex figures I do buy, I really want them to hit hard, and Daredevil might be one of those hard hitters. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the review, please give the video a like. I go through all of the comments, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I shall be back with Mafex Daredevil, but until then, remember to do those push-ups, and as always...
よろしく